The DPP office in Bolton Street handled all police prosecutions in northern New South Wales. Remarkably, when a fire was lit in the building in June, very few, if any, papers were lost. The interior, though, was severely damaged. A team of detectives has been working on the case, but up until this week has had few leads. However, police are treating seriously 3 anonymous phone calls to the Newcastle Herald, which detail why the fire was lit and who was behind it. The caller has apparently supplied information which few people knew about, including details of a broken security key which was found at the scene. The man who's named a Newcastle police officer as being involved in the fire and says the blaze was to destroy files relevant to the Police Royal Commission. Whoever was behind the fire knew the layout of the building and was able to enter the heavily secured office without being detected. The arsonist poured petrol throughout the office and damaged internal firefighting equipment. While police are investigating the calls, they say it's not the only line of inquiry they're following. Jodie McKay, NBN News. The South Korean seaman was burnt by steam on board the bulk carrier Gunzaran, which is anchored around 8 kilometres off Nobby's. With a backlog of ships waiting to enter Newcastle Harbour, the rescue helicopter flew paramedics to the vessel. While the paramedics stabilised the man, the helicopter waited at Fletcher Park. It then headed back out to pick up the patient, who had sustained serious burns to his upper body.
Negative, target John Hunter, we may need a little bit of fuel and then we'll have to return to that vessel and pick up a crew member.
The seaman, who is in his mid-30s, was loaded onto the helicopter and taken to John Hunter Hospital, where he remains in a serious condition.
For 3 years, Highfields have been at the top of northern New South Wales soccer. They're now shooting for their 4th crown, but must overcome the spirited challenge of Western to retain the championship. A Western victory would place them level with Highfields, ensuring a repeat performance of their passionate first-round encounter.
I think it was a fiery encounter, and I think it'll be the same again. You know, there's no love lost between the two sides.
Adding to the game, the presence of Breakers coach John Cosmina, who'll be more than an interested spectator.
They'll be under pressure. They know that they've got to perform, and Cosmina hasn't had a lot of time to be here and look at players. So these one-off matches are sometimes really vital for positions.
In the State League, Adamstown is away to Bankstown, while Hamilton take on Cessnock tomorrow, with all remaining matches on Sunday. And in the Bill Turner Cup played in Grafton this afternoon, Lambton High School advanced to the quarterfinals after a 1-0 victory. 0-0 at half-time, a second-half goal to Murray Cooper broke the deadlock, giving the visitors victory over Grafton High School.
After 70 years of service in the coalfields of the Lower Hunter Valley, this Class 10 locomotive is about to be restored to its original glory. Under a scheme funded by the Department of Employment, Education and Training, 20 men are being retrained in metalwork and carpentry to carry out the work.
Well, it means a lot. It gives us, a bit of an incentive to get back in the workforce, and it's a bit more money than dial, and so it just sort of keeps you off the street a bit.
As well as the loco, which was taken out of service in 1982, 3 coal wagons and a brake van will be restored. The project will take 6 months to complete.
With the amount of skills they're showing already early in the project, I think some employers will be pleased to have them in their employment.
Once completed, the train will be on public display at the Port Waratah Coal Services Terminal at Kooragang. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Despite the blustery conditions on the foreshore, the race was well supported with several past winners all attending. National junior representatives Clinton McAvicius and Martin Dent finished the 5K trek in 15 minutes, while some who were just as courageous crossed as the 10-kilometre runners completed the course. Mitchison finished in around 31 minutes, ahead of previous winners Jason Maxwell and Ian Leach, while Annette Quirk took out the women's race. On the track in Europe, Newcastle's Paul Henderson has qualified for the World Championships in Gothenburg next month. Henderson won a 100-metre runoff between the Australians at Oslo yesterday, beating the likes of Marsh, Brimacombe and Jackson in 10.33 seconds. Not as big, but just as fast, those competing at Curry's Junior Motorcycle Club today. The club has made history, becoming the first in the state to stage speedway, motocross and dirt track events all on the same weekend. With just 4 rounds remaining in the premiership, second place Western needed to defeat Highfields to join them at the top of the table. The Bears kept Highfields at bay early. Goalkeeper Peter Oberhauser, as always, hard to beat. His opponent Craig Carter was also in good form, foiling Neville Smith's strike after a precise cross from Ian Tressida. It wasn't till the 35th minute that a chance was converted. Highfields going ahead after Wayne Bailey's shot deflected into the path of Gary Wilson, who put away what turned out to be the winner. An interested spectator at the match was Breakers coach John Cosmina. He confirmed he was looking at 4 or 5 players in today's game and says the club will no longer be pursuing the services of Australian captain Paul Wade.
Paul's definitely got a commercial value, but from what I would like to do on the park, it would be difficult for me to probably find a spot for him. He's not the player that I'd build a team around.
Instead of being in the classroom, these students from 40 high schools throughout the Hunter are taking part in the region's 2-day athletics championships at Maitland. Organiser Peter Moore agrees with the push to increase sporting hours in schools, saying it's a good move for all students, not just the athletic ones.
I can see that will be a benefit to those students. The government, I believe, is trying to push for fitness levels to be increased. It's being proved in the primary at the moment that the levels are very low. It can only go better for the athletes and for the future development of our athletes as they go through to high school.
He also says carnivals like today's championships nurture future Olympians.
There is quite a few of the students who are competing here today that will probably be at the 2000 Olympics in Sydney.
Switch to me just got there from Pardew Bay, and thanks Bob. The Quinella $4.20, the trifecta $102.90. To Warwick Farm race 7 over 1,100 metres. $15, $2.60, $1.50, $1.80. The Quinella $24.40. The trifecta $363.50. Super League wants to play at Marathon. The Knights say they can't, but the state government body which oversees the ground, the Newcastle International Sports Centre Trust, sees it differently.
Let me say this. Super League are prepared to spend $4 or $5 million on upgrading the ground. We believe that for the benefit of Newcastle, it'll be a great thing.
Jim Sharp, an ardent Knights fan, says his hands are tied. He must work under the Sports Centre Act, which, subject to legal debate, binds the trust to look for the best for the community. Former Knights chairman and barrister Max Fox disagrees.
My belief on the terms of the lease is that the Newcastle Knights are the tenant 365 days of the year, each year for 20 years.
Super League was stunned by the Knights knockback earlier this week. This latest information from the Trust has sparked new hopes.
The Trust appear to have issued a statement saying they'd like to review the Knights' decision regarding Marathon Stadium, which looks very positive for us as far as maybe leaving that door or that opportunity open to us again at some stage.
And so the controversy continues to boil. The International Sports Centre Trust will meet with Knights officials next week. The Trust wanting more information on why the Knights rejected the Super League proposal. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
It's a time-honoured tradition, the exacting work of lace making. Exhibitors have travelled from across the state for Morpett's annual craft crawl this weekend. None of the lace is for sale because the pieces are priceless.
People just do it for the love of it. Nobody sells their lace because it takes so much time to do.
Provision has been made for anyone who wants to try their hand at it. Demonstrations will show how to make a variety of different lace and uses for the material. Other crafts on display will include wood turning and painting.
Anyone who lived through it would remember where they were when news that the war had finished came through. Some were at the front in jungles, ships and aircraft, but others had toiled in factories or tilling the land, doing their bit on the home front. Tremendous joy for many was tinged with the terrible price of peace.
We wanted to reflect the national effort that it took to win the war in the Pacific.
Lake Macquarie hosted Peace in the Park celebrations yesterday, attracting the young, the old and the sentimental. VP Day marches and services will be held at Nelson Bay, Gosford and Newcastle from about 10:30 tomorrow morning. At Newcastle's Civic Park, a torch of peace will be passed and doves released. From 12 noon, people will be asked to observe 2 minutes silence for those who fought and worked for peace. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
They marched as heroes through the centre of Nelson Bay, the men and women who saved our nation. 50 years ago to the day, there was another procession, a march of celebration with the announcement that the war had ended.
We were very happy to think, that things had come back to normal. It just was unbelievable.
We partied well into the early hours of the morning. It was lovely.
And it was party time today, the Diggers looking back on a special victory. The Defence Force's radar veterans joining the celebrations in Apex Park.
They are in the crowd there, and you can tell by their highly intelligent, extraordinarily handsome and beautiful faces.
And in a moving service, hundreds remembered the people who gave their lives to secure the life we have today. At Beresfield, another ceremony to commemorate the war effort, a stone was unveiled as part of a memorial garden. Every town in the Hunter was directly affected by the war, a sad loss of life that will never be forgotten. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The concrete span had just left a Taralba workshop when police believe it came loose, sending the truck across Main Road 217 at around 1:30 this morning. Police say the 35-year-old driver who was steering the vehicle from its rear cabin lost control. The truck mounted an embankment and then flipped onto its roof. The driver suffered internal injuries, trapped beneath the vehicle for more than an hour. The 60-tonne cement girder blocked the road for around 7 hours, its weight and length making it difficult for salvage crews. The span was one of two to be used in the construction of a new bridge in Sydney. And a 65-year-old woman critically injured in a crash yesterday in the Upper Hunter has died. The woman and her husband were moving furniture from Coleroy in Sydney to Woollahra near Denman when the four-wheel drive they were in slammed into a tree near Jerry's Plains. Her 67-year-old husband died instantly. Crash investigators believe fatigue may have been a factor. They say the car travelled 30 metres through a paddock before hitting the tree. Meantime, police are still probing the cause of a crash late yesterday between a van and a bus at Valentine at Lake Macquarie. The 22-year-old driver of the van is in intensive care after losing the lower half of his leg. The community of Narrabri honoured their sons and daughters who were involved in the war effort and those 25,000 soldiers who passed through the town as part of the Armoured Division. A special memorial was dedicated to all who served in World War II. Then came the march with hundreds of residents cheering on their returned servicemen and women. Even the very young took time to reflect, very much aware of how important this day is. Once outside the Westpac Bank, a short service was held with the 1st Armoured Division again given special recognition. Many of these men saw active service during World War II. Norm Sweetman remembers well the night barge trip to New Guinea and Christmas Day 1942 when his division came under attack.
The ambitious extensions were given the go-ahead by Lake Macquarie Council last night. While present facilities are more than functional, they need modernising.
Club started like a lot of other clubs did, just as a small building. It's been added onto, and some parts of it now are not practical for the use of the club. We just want to change a lot of things inside the club mainly to make it better for our staff and better for our members.
A number of changes are proposed for both the interior and exterior of the club, including a more space-efficient bar, relocating the administrative offices, moving the poker machine room, as well as expanding the actual building. It's hoped the renovations will ensure the popularity of the club in the future.
We are a very profitable club. We've got good membership, good support from our members, and we're very confident. We're very competitive in the bowls area. Like we won 3 out of the last 5 state championships.
While it's a long-term plan over a number of years, work is expected to start in 6 months in the bar area. Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
Cups King Bart Cummings was just one of several high-profile racing folk enjoying the Spring Cup Day sunshine. On the track, hoops such as Marshall, Cassidy and Boss were all doing battle. But the man who's shown them all a clean pair of heels of late is Darren Beedman, surpassing Billy Cook's 55-year-old Sydney Premiership record and Wayne Harris's state milestone, the highlight of his career.
Winning the Melbourne Cup is just the pinnacle of racing, but breaking that record that stood for 55 years is really something that I'll treasure, and there's a great place on the mantelpiece for the trophy.
It's quite a comeback from the despair of Hong Kong when he was disqualified for 9 months, which make his recent feats even more remarkable.
Giving them a month's start and being able to be leading rider in the state and in the city, and breaking about 3 records. So it was a great season, but it was even a good start too.
But such is the nature of racing, going into the feature event today, the Nissan Spring Cup, the champion jockey was yet to salute. Newcastle's premier rider Alan Robinson upstaging Beedman, who was second on Sakulu.
Urban sprawl over old underground mines has created major structural problems for some households in Newcastle, the Upper Hunter, southwestern parts of Lake Macquarie and north of Wyong. Over the years, millions of dollars in compensation payments have been awarded, but many claimants have been frustrated by restrictive and outdated laws.
There are some people who are aggrieved. There are other people who probably want to do things on land that they can't do now. There are things that are going on in the mining industry that are very exciting, and we've got to get it right so that we don't upend society, we don't do the wrong thing by society.
In October, the Minister plans to gather feedback from a special forum where representatives from the mining industry, government and the community will be invited to have their say. The last amendment to the Compensation Act was nearly 3 years ago.
There's been issues raised over the years, and I indicated the right of appeal was one that's incorporated in legislation. However, not everyone feels that the Land Environment Court's the place to go for it. Maybe there's a small claims thing.
The Mine Subsidence Board is funding the initiative, the organisation often criticised over its handling of compensation payouts.
We're open to that constructive criticism. I think that's very healthy for the way the board operates.
The site for Sanitarium's $8 million corporate complex was once earmarked for a toxic chemical plant. With more than 80 administrative staff, it's the largest head office located on the Central Coast.
Sydney is becoming very congested, and there are other companies like ourselves who are choosing to not just to locate manufacturing centres away from the city, but also their administrative headquarters.
Today's official opening honours went to Federal Member and Minister Michael Lee. Sanitarium plans to expand its food processing operations by the middle of next year, hoping to boost last year's $157 million sales figure.
We have a real commitment to developing offshore opportunities. Export is important to us.
Next door is the organisation's huge manufacturing plant measuring half a kilometre wide. Visitor tours are restricted to certain areas. Australia's food industry is worth $700 million a year. To keep a competitive edge, processing at this plant is a high security operation. It's believed Sanitarium is working on a new range of soya-based food products, the company keeping tight-lipped about details. Melinda Smith, NBN News.
At Wallsend South Public, the school's annual Eisteddfod is underway. The two-day event encourages students from kindergarten to year 6 to perform on stage. There's a number of sections, including singing, instrumental and dance, and there's no shortage of an audience. The grand finals will be held at the school tomorrow night.